No, no, no. Did y'all see Stephen A. Smith on his podcast Wednesday when he talked about Jason Whitlock? You,
I
You
did.
you
I
you
did
think
watch
I
like
didn't
little
when I
bit of
did?
it.
Oh,
Leaf,
Yeah.
everybody saw it.
we gonna talk about that, but I just want to warn you. Let's be careful. Leaf, to quote you, model citizen. You can curse, but just be careful.
I'm gonna go first to try to get it out of the way. I think Stephen A. Man, he took off. He took off like in a lot of cases than many. And the look on Champ face, man, says it all, man. Because that man, like, he literally took off. I mean, a lot of think people, not just people that watch, think Jason Whitlock is a whole lot of things under the sun. But I mean, he took off on this dude like never before. And I think a lot of anti Jason Whitlock people were waiting for somebody to take off on Jason Whitlock. I just didn't think that they thought that Stephen A. Smith was going to be the one to pull that trigger. And the way that he pulled that trigger, man, like, listen, it's a lot of things. It's a lot of words that he said that you don't say, and when you're in that echelon of I guess a echelon of sports celebrity in that professionalism. But it was on YouTube and it was on his page, and I guess and it wasn't on ESPN. So I guess I don't know if ESPN is going to do a thing about it.
It was on his podcast, and Stephen A. Smith said that the executives from ESPN, his family, even his pastor, begged him not to do this.
Right, right. So I mean, and if it listen, if his family and his pastor and ESPN execs begging him not to do this, and he still went on and pulled the trigger, that just goes to show you that Stephen A. was pretty triggered about something. And if anybody could take you there, it's Jason Whitlock. And the thing is, he has, and with the things that he has said over the years pertaining towards athletes or whatever the case may be, he has definitely gone off the deep end and jump off the top rope with a lot of his comments, man. If you thought listen, for anybody that's gonna watch this, if you thought what I was saying was crazy, Jason Whitlock literally takes the cake in terms of like his criticism and I'm using that word lightly. I'm using a light term. His criticism of athletes of color. And
Mm-hmm.
and and I'll be honest with you, man. I
No,
think
Leaf, you
we
spitting.
all
You
can,
spitting.
and I think we all can admit that he has been a lot of things under the sun. And I'm not going to say right now, but Stephen A. It was triggered, and he definitely pulled the trigger, and he let his gun go off for sure, for sure. So I mean, I'm a pass the rock, man, but I like to think what all y'all think about it, because that was kind of woof, woof.
Trey,
That was some heat right there.
Trey, you want to go?
Yeah, but man, eh, Stephen A. Dog, I was actually happy that Stephen A. did that because I said, finally somebody is sticking it to Jason Whitlock. And you saw right after Stephen A. did it, right? Everybody who did like Jason Whitlock came in a circle and said, "Let me get a piece of him." You saw Shannon Sharp, I think I don't know his last name, but I know he used to be on ESPN.
Dan Levitar.
Yeah, Dan Levitar,
Jamel Hill.
Jamel Hill. It is like, bruh, it was no love for Jason Whitlock, none, and that's what he get.
All
It's
right.
like, bro,
I'm sorry, Trey. Go ahead.
oh, I'm done.
No, no. If you want to continue, man, go on, man.
Oh no, I'm done. I'm done.
Okay. All right. All right.
I just had to get that
Harrison.
last little bit out.
No, it's all
Um,
good.
dude, I don't want to say about that. I have no comments. There's just
All right. If you don't
I,
want to say it,
I can't.
champ,
No
I'm a,
comment.
champ. I'm gonna let you go, and then I'll have the floor. Go ahead, champ.
Okay, I won't take long. This will only take 60 seconds. The countdown is now. I've never seen how you just badmouth your own peers. Remember how he badmouthed Stuart Scott?
Rest his soul. Yes, yes.
And then it later came out,
Man,
and when it later came out after his death, and he was saying how much Stuart Scott meant to the industry, and everybody knew how disingenuous it was. Remember when he said something about Serena Williams' body
Yeah, he
and how
fat
he
shamed
body
her.
shamed and how he body shamed her? Remember how he came out and just said some of the most egregious things in the world about certain athletes. And it just didn't start recently. Remember, he was doing the same thing to Derek Thomas and some of the guys back in Kansas City when he was at the Kansas City Star.
Star.
When you burn bridges the way he has, you are a cancer at a certain point. And I don't understand, how do you have time to go at your peers like you do? But yet, I never see you going at Dan Patrick. I never see you going at Rich Eisen. I never see you going at Skip Bayless. I never see you going at anybody else other than your peers, your other peers, we will say. So for you to keep doing that over and over and shaming your own people and trying to bring them down, who are you to tell Stephen A that he didn't write his own memoirs? That's
Mm.
just like you writing a book, PSP, and I come out and say PSP didn't write that. Who are you to tell me I didn't write that? Is that any of your business, even if I did? You got that much time on your hands to go research about another person that has done so much for the industry that you are just that jealous?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the thing was, you had a chance in order to do this. You had a chance. Remember when we watched Dan Lebertar earlier today, he had to vouch for him in order to in order for anybody to work with him. Dan Lebertar, Dan Lebertar had to go out on a limb in order to get anybody to work with. He begged them to vouch for him.
Is he the worst? Is Whitlock the worst out of everybody that we've heard in the media? I mean, like, because it's
I
been
mean,
some real
as
creeps.
far as
yeah,
as far as bashing a lot of the black athletes, as far as bashing the black journalists, as far as black bashing is I mean, not just because of the every you have the right to criticize as a journalist. We all
Right.
get on here and we say this guy's had a bad game. We all get on here and say, hey, this guy's a turnover machine. But when it goes outside of sports and you start making personal attacks on someone, that's when you're taking it too far. And remember, somebody will check you in later on if you keep. I mean, we've seen a lot of cases. You saw what happened with Jim Rome and Jim Everett. He brought him
Oh
on the
yeah.
show. Yeah, he brought him on the show. He told him to stop calling Tris. Next thing you know, Jim Rome on the floor.
Oh
Mm.
yeah. I remember that.
Yeah,
I do remember.
these athletes
oh
were checked,
shit.
and then now it's even more politically incorrect. It's even more. These guys are not as politically correct as the Jim Everett was. Some of these guys will come and check you in if
Oh
you
yeah.
get what.
All right.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I think
And
Whitlock
over and over.
and
It's
I think
after a
I think
while.
Whitlock has like literally
Yes, after a
crossed.
while, what we say in the army, what we used to say in the army, what you do becomes a pattern, and the patterns reflect your behavior. And if your patterns reflect your behavior reflects your personality. And if all that is a reflection of you, then you can't say everybody else is a problem. Like we say down south, everybody ain't lying. If somebody comes out and say, "Hey, you did this," okay, one person could be lying. Another person come out and say, "Hey, you this," two people could be lying. But when you have every single person that you have ever worked with in the history of the workforce and say this dude
Say,
slime, he's scum, everybody's not lying.
And I would say, man, like, listen, anytime anybody in that profession calls you out of your name like the way that Stephen A does, man. Like you have like really he has been what Dave Chappelle has called what Charlie Murphy has called a habitual line stepper. That's who he's been. He's been stepping that line
I agree.
for way too long, and I think somebody finally got tired, man. It just so happened to be the person that a lot of us don't really don't really is not really too fond of neither. But
Not at all.
yeah.
Casual. What's up, man? How you doing, man?
Yo, what's good?
We just talking about Stephen A. Smith's comments on Jason Whitlock. Did you check out the interview? And if you did, what are your thoughts?
I've actually I've been keeping up with both fronts. So Jason Whitlock's Cat Williams stream where he basically correlated Stephen A to one of the examples I think, or one of the things that Cat Williams was alluding to. He sort of just puts Stephen A in that box. I saw the Stephen A stream, and there's a slew of other streams. I urge you guys check out Lamont from FYF's stream where he basically did a play by play and like actually did a lookup of all of this evidence that Jason Whitlock said he had. And my thing is, I'm gonna try to challenge you on 30 seconds rather than 60 seconds. I'll do this in 30 seconds. You started now. It amazes me how people in the media are so quick to get to want to take a take and end up running with that take that they're willing to go against all the morals in which they have. And so the fact that as a black man, you're critiquing another black man on things that are just unequivocally true. Stephen A. came from an area of where in New York where it's like 1% gets to be as successful as him. And not only was he able to make it out, but he was able to also become a global like phenom where, and he uses that to be able to upbring the rest of our community. Let's not even talk about the uh, uh, the donations and the funding that he has given to his former college, Wilson Salem State. I think it Wilson Salem State.
Yes, sir.
Winston-Salem State,
Yes, sir.
HBCU.
Yes, and so he that like that's just one example of the many donations and funding and just energy and time that he puts in into our black community. And for you to lie so that you could get a takeoff about how Stephen A is falsifying his upbringing, even if that is true. I feel like from a core mental value stance, there's something wrong with Jason Whitlock to the fact that you feel like that was such a big problem that you had to prioritize that over some of the bigger issues that are going on in sports. In sports. Hell, there's bigger issues he could have pointed to in the brand in which he worked at, which is Fox, in the brand in which he worked at in ESPN. There are some bigger issues in that than one individual in Stephen A. Smith. And that is the bigger problem here. People in media, and that includes us, are so quick to want to get a takeoff that they don't do their due diligence of doing any research. And two, they don't care to actually sit back and think, well, is this even worth my time?
And
All right,
one quick thing, PSP,
go ahead.
of all things, you bash all of these African American athletes and you bash all of these African American journalists. Yet you have the nerve to sit there with Brett Favre of all
Mm-hmm.
people,
I
of
was going to
all
steal that.
people, and talk about Deion Sanders. You ought to be ashamed of yourself for doing that. And and Brett Favre is accused of stealing millions from
Welfare
the people of
funds
yes,
in
from
the
stealing
poorest
millions
state in
from
this
the
country.
poorest state in the not only in the South, but in the entire United States of America. But yet you deem it fit to bash every African American journalist and every African American athlete. You ought to be ashamed. And not just on an athletic level or a journalistic critique. You bash them on a personal level. You should be ashamed. That's it for me.
That also reminds me. I just want to give a quick shout out because I was the first one, and we made a YouTube short over this. I was one of I was the one that pointed at Take It TV and said we need to hold him accountable for some of the outlandish takes that he made doing the number three for Oklahoma City Thunder comments and how he didn't do his due diligence. I want to be the first one to also applaud him because that was a great interview where he forced Jason Whitlock to answer some of the toughest questions that everybody was wondering. He did not hesitate to ask them. He put Jason Whitlock in a stance where he had to answer those questions, and just kudos to Ticket TV for that.
All right, let me go in. I loved everything Stephen A. Smith said. Now he begged. Now his family, executives at ESPN, his pastor did not want him to talk about this. I loved every second, every minute Stephen A. Smith spewed. Champ, I want to look at Champ because we've had conversations about Jason Whitlock. I said Jason Whitlock is as real as Vanilla Ice's bio. Jason Whitlock is a joke. None of what he said about Stephen A. Smith with his memoir does not surprise me, not one bit, because this is his stick. This is who he is. And Champ brought up all the receipts that I was going to bring about Jason Whitlock.
Oh, sorry.
Such as, no, this is good. You stole my energy, but that's all right. I am not surprised at all with what Jason Whitlock had to say. This is the same Jason Whitlock who called Kobe Bryant the most fraudulent superstar we have ever seen. But you suddenly wanted to show him love once Kobe, God rest his soul, passed away. This is the same Jason Whitlock back in 2009, as Champ put it. He fat shamed Serena Williams. Fat shamed Serena Williams. This is the same Jason Whitlock who said in 2017 when he was on Fox Sports 1, when he went on Colin Cowherd's The Herd, and then later on his own show, Speak for Yourself, Now Speak, he said racism is an issue, but it's primarily for the poor. It's not LeBron James's issue. This was at the time when LeBron James's home was vandalized, when someone spray painted the N-word on his front gate, to which Chris Broussard had a serious problem with what Jason Whitlock had to say. Go look it up on YouTube to see for yourself. Jason Whitlock, the reason why he now works at Glenn Beck's The Blaze. That should tell you all you need to know. And the reason why people from the audience of Glenn Beck's The Blaze or Outkick, the reason why they love Jason Whitlock so much, he is a black person with a voice or a platform that will spew the type of stuff that they want to hear. Jason Whitlock has spent an entire history criticizing, shaming black athletes. LeBron James, Colin Kaepernick. The list goes on and on and on. When
Deion Sanders.
There's so many more. Hold on, Casual. Let me finish because I got a lot to say.
No. Cook.
Jason Whitlock is full of shit. I'm trying. Jason Whitlock is a piece of shit. Like I said, Champ, he's as real as Vanilla Ice's bio. He is a joke. He is an embarrassment. He is a disgrace to media. The only person that has come to Jason Whitlock's defense since Stephen A. Smith attacked him is one Sage Steele.
Typical.
Not surprising at all. If you look at what Jamel Hill...
what did she do?
Hold on, Trey. Hold on. Let me finish now. If you look at what Jamel Hill, if you look at what Mike Hill, if you look at what all the other journalists had to say about Stephen A. Smith's comments, they did not come to Jason Whitlock's defense. Everything that Stephen A. Smith said was true. Go back to an article He even he even showed a picture of Jason Whitlock's face going back to an article from Deadspin in 2015 when Jason Whitlock with the undefeated, right, champ? Young writers
Mm-hmm.
refused to work with him, including ESPN's Howard Bryant, Jamel Hill, and Stephen A. Smith. The same Jason Whitlock who claimed Stephen A. Smith couldn't even write his own damn memoir. Where's the evidence or proof that you have to back that up? I'm sorry, champ. You want to add on to that?
No, go ahead. Continue cooking. I'm putting myself on mute. I want you to cook this.
Jason Whitlock is a joke, folks. And this is
Doing a
why
good
he is
job,
not
by the
taken
way, Andy.
seriously. He is an embarrassment to black people. And I know Chris Broussard. He lives in the same town, same area I live in, South Orange. As Stephen A. Smith said on his podcast, Chris Broussard, for those who may not know, God-fearing man, loves the Lord, wears the Lord on his sleeve. He even said on his podcast, Chris Broussard didn't want to deal with him. Rob Parker doesn't want to deal with him. A lot of people in the media do not want to work with Jason Whitlock. He is not hated. He is despised. He is full of it, which is why Stephen A. Smith went on the record calling him a fat bastard, calling him a POS, saying, he even said, if Jason Whitlock has a funeral, there ain't going to be too many pallbearers showing up to his funeral. He even went far, he even went even further. Wrap your arms around your soul. He called him the devil. And Jason Whitlock, and let me tell you, I know that Jason Whitlock is just only doing this and getting attention for this. Some people may say what Stephen A. Smith did by responding, he shouldn't have to, because why waste your time and energy? But I loved it. Because I don't always agree with Stephen A. Smith on a lot of things. I didn't agree with what he said about Colin Kaepernick saying that he's interested in being a martyr. I didn't agree with the comments he said about Shohei Ohtani at the time. But in this particular situation, I loved it. Because far too long, Stephen A. Smith didn't say anything. But he finally reached a point where enough is enough. It's like a person at school that is constantly getting bullied by the bully. And the victim finally has had enough and decided to take retribution.
I don't even want to
No,
waste
no,
no
no,
more time on this clown.
leaf. Let me finish, Leaf. I love this about Stephen A. Smith. Because Stephen A. Smith finally had enough. I'm glad that he said it, regardless of what the executives of ESPN, regardless of what his family or his pastor may say. There comes a point where enough is enough. And there comes a point in which you got to say what exactly how you feel. So I don't have a problem with what Stephen A. Smith had to say as it pertains to Jason Whitlock. I hope people understands and realizes this is who he is. He has a history. Journalists, columnists, they don't hate him. They despise him because they know deep down inside he's full of shit. That's all I got to say.
Could have said it, brother.
Put him in the casket. Close it.
Damn, I wish I had my cooking. I wish I had like the cooking emoji. I could be able to bring it. That was.
I
But
wish
he
I
was
could. I
cooking,
wish I
man.
could have done a better job articulating it. But I knew at some point I was going to talk about this. I'm glad I finally talked about this. I'm just telling y'all how I feel about Jason
I think
Whitlock.
we wasted enough time on that
No. Oh,
clown.
leave. I just think Jason Whitlock, like I said, is a scum of the earth. To quote Roland Martin, because he went on Vlad TV and he talked about people like Jason Whitlock and Candace Owens. He talked about certain people like Jason Whitlock, Candace Owens, and Kanye West. He quoted Denzel Washington from the movie American Gangsters. Simple Simon motherfuckers. And there is no pure, simple Simon motherfucker than Jason Whitlock.